Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This might be a bit of a long one, so I will warn you up front, although you would have seen the time on the corner of the video. Because we are going to talk about not only what has taken place in the Senate over the last 24 hours with regard to the big, beautiful bill, Trump's reverse Robin Hood tax raid on the poor to pay for tax cuts to the rich, and we're going to talk about how that really is what is going on here. This isn't some kind of framing of the bill by Democrats. That is how it's being framed, because that is what it is. I mean, the data is in. There are people within the Republican Party who are aware of this. What has happened has been a big loyalty test effectively for Trump, and I want to talk about that and then move that on onto other things, talking about ICE and Alligator Alcatraz and corruption and a whole load of other bits and pieces that suggest that really we've got this, as well you've heard, from me already, as I keep saying, we've got this move towards dictatorship, towards autocracy that is taking place. And if you don't do something about it now, then you're getting closer to it being too late. It is a really worrying slide that we're seeing, and it is happening right in front of our eyes, and there appears to be nothing that half of the country is prepared to do about it, or at least half of the political landscape is prepared to do about it. You've got some interesting moves demographically with regard to support for not just this bill, but also Trump in general. So this bill is a deeply unpopular bill, almost 2-to-1 ratio of those who oppose it against those who support it. But what's interesting is that most people don't know about it. So there's some data that has come out, done by a Democrat PAC that has looked into the big beautiful bill and found out that only 45% of people know about it, and only 8% of people know that it's going to cut medical care, which is phenomenal. Like, this is the landmark bit of legislation for the Trump administration, but also it's arguably one of the worst bits of legislation in American history. It's that serious. And yet only 8% of people know that it's going to harm medical care for much of the population. And this suggests that the message just isn't getting out there. It suggests that people sit in information bubbles and consume what they want to consume, and they don't listen to evidence against their positions particularly. It's just deeply worrying. And with this bill, the more people find out about it, this is why they were trying to delay it in the Senate, the more people find out about it, the less they like it. So you only get something through like this on the back of kind of a lack of knowledge, cognizance of what it is and what it seeks to do. Now, you can say that of the general public, but you can also say that about the actual the Congress, the Senate, the House. This bill gets dropped in the middle of the night. People have to read it, 1,000 pages. Who actually knows all the finer details in there? And I think this is dangerous territory. But also within the bill are little elements that are smuggled in there to allow for greater power to the executive, to Trump. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And we're already seeing what Trump is doing with regard to creating concentration camps, rounding up people without due process, sending them there, sending them abroad, and so on and so forth. These are truly worrying times. Now let's go to Pod Save America, who do a really nice synopsis of how egregious this bill really is.
All right, Dan, the Senate just passed Trump's big, beautiful bill. It will throw something like 17 million people off of their health care. It will cost $3 trillion. It'll give $4.5 trillion worth of tax cuts for the richest people. It will cut food assistance. We're going to spend $23 billion on Trump's fucking Golden Dome project for some reason. This might be, I can't really remember being this angry at our government or how stupid it is.
There's never been a dumber bill in history. It makes no sense. It answers no questions anyone's asking. It solves no pressing problem. It makes every problem we have worse. It runs counter to everything Republicans say they care about other than tax cuts for the rich.
I would qualify this a little bit more. It allows ICE to have free reign. Give them all the funding they need to go and round up as many people as they can get their hands on. And actually, that is something that the Republican MAGA base is broadly in support of.
Right. It makes a recession more likely. It spends money in some of the stupidest ways possible. It's the biggest single increase in the debt in U.S. history at a time in which interest rates are jacked up. So this is much, much worse than any of the times like during COVID when interest rates were near zero when we jacked up the debt. We're going to spend most of our federal budget now on debt servicing because of this. For one end, we're not giving healthcare to a bunch of people. We're not building, infrastructure or stopping climate change or doing anything like that. We're simply preserving tax cuts that already exist for rich people.
Yeah, Dan, the interest on our debt could exceed $1.9 trillion per year in 2034 if all the measures in this Senate bill are made permanent. Just to dig into the tax piece of this for a second. So the Financial Times had a great chart. I think it was based off data from Yale University. So the bottom 20% of the country, the poorest 20% of people in this country, will lose $560 a year because of this bill. So you'll see your after-tax income go down $560 per year. The top 1% will get $32,000 more per year. The top 0.1% will take home $118,000 more. That is who benefits from this piece of shit bill.
This is so freaking important. Obviously it is. So it's a reverse Robin Hood. You're stealing from the poor, giving it to the rich. But why are you jacking up the national debt to this level? It's not like, and it's so important what Dan Pfeiffer said then. You're not building infrastructure. You're not giving people healthcare. You're not improving education. You're not doing any of these big things that would warrant that kind of debt increase. You are giving that money to people who are already insanely rich. Another thing that's worth remembering as well is that you remember when Donald Trump called on people from the oil industry to come and give $1 billion or whatever it is, come and give money and I'll give you policy. That's what's happening here, because renewables, wind and solar, are not only not getting subsidies now, so they're taking away the Biden era subsidies for the renewable energy industry, which is a growth industry, and you're trying to compete with China. China have gone nuts on renewables. So you're trying to compete there. So rather than invest in that industry and jobs for the future, they are taking away subsidies and they are taxing. So they're not only not giving them a helping hand, and when you look at the subsidies of the fossil fuel industry over the last 50 years, you can understand that that's somewhat warranted and justified. They're not only taking away the subsidies, they are hitting them with a tax. They are screwing that industry. So then you go back to Trump saying, come and give me loads of money and I'll give you policy. So the fossil fuel industry goes and gives Trump a bunch of money, and Trump comes out with a big, beautiful bill, or his Project 2025 people come out with a big, beautiful bill to come true on the quid pro quo. You gave us that, we'll give you this. Screw the renewables. So, you're jacking up the national debt to pay rich people, to pay corporations that are already taking in stupendous amounts of money, and to line the pockets of the fossil fuel industry. This is just a terrible, terrible bill.
It's insane. Like, you and I know it's bullshit, but Trump ran as a populist who was going to lower your costs. And this is the only bill of consequence that he has passed since he's been in office. And it will be, presuming it gets to the House, it's a giant tax cuts for the rich that is paid for by kicking working class Americans off their health care and their food assistance, and raises costs for 80 million Americans. It makes their life more expensive, making their healthcare more expensive, their energy costs more expensive, their food more expensive. It's a truly, truly insane, incredibly cruel, morally odious piece of shit. And the thing is it's also incredibly politically unpopular. Like, it's not even like, it just, what they're doing makes no sense. It doesn't make sense politically, doesn't make sense substantively, doesn't make sense ideologically. It's just for the sole purpose of giving Donald Trump a win.
I would qualify that. So it is about giving him a win. But as I was going to say earlier, looking at the demographics or the polling results and whatnot, I mean, this bill and Trump, deeply unpopular with Democrats, obviously, also with independents, but within Republicans, there is still just about support for this bill, and that's going to be drawn mainly from what it enables ICE to do with regard to rounding up immigrants and deporting them. So it's not just about giving Trump a win. So he wants this win, and he wants it through the House. So because it's been amended in the Senate, it goes back to the House to be voted on. And we'll talk about all of this in a second, but he wants it done by the 4th of July. He wants fireworks on the 4th of July to celebrate this big, beautiful bill and to celebrate him.
No matter the cost.
Harry Enton at CNN sort of did a rundown of all the polls. The polling on this bill ranged from 19 points underwater to, I think, 26 points underwater. It is as unpopular as it could be, for all the reasons you just described here. It's like, it's not helping anyone. It's not solving any problems. It's making a bunch of problems worse. For example, it's going to completely undermine all these efforts that were made by, yes, Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Democrats, but to subsidize the clean energy industry, which is going to kill jobs. And it will ultimately mean that there is just less power. There's less wind energy. There's less solar energy. So the price of energy is going to go up. We're going to have blackouts and brownouts in this country. And energy-intensive industries like data centers or artificial intelligence won't be able to operate here. They're going to go abroad. They're going to go to China. Because you know what China did? China installed more wind turbines and solar panels last year than the rest of the world combined. They are eating our fucking lunch when it comes to renewables.
It's just like this, every goal they say they have, they undermine with this bill. So if you believe the JD Vance, Donald Trump, China is the adversary of our time, and we have to compete with China, then what are we doing? We are undermining our ability to compete with them on clean energy and compete with them on AI. The two things that are likely to drive economic prosperity and global dominance in the future. And we're making it worse. And for no reason. It's just to own the libs. There is no point here. No one actually wants this from a substantive perspective. They just want it because it makes them feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
It appears that the United States is punching itself in the face while putting on a pair of jackboots. Just the self-destructive nature of everything they're doing at the moment is just so painful to see.
Yeah, I mean, we Lovett and I talked to Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut yesterday, and we try to kind of, like, in good faith, ask who is this for? Who wants this? How does this benefit anyone? Since the politics are terrible, the impact is terrible. And Murphy was like, "Look, remember those stories about the oil and gas executives coming down to Mar-a-Lago,
there you go,
writing $1 million checks to the Trump campaign, and Trump basically saying, 'I'll do your bidding if you give me your money.'" Here we go. Like this is the kickback.
Million, yeah.
But yeah, our guy JD Vance. He said, this is a tweet, Dan, the CBO score, the proper baseline, the minutia of the Medicaid policy is immaterial. So he thinks that cutting 12, 17, depending on how you look at, million people off of Medicaid or getting rid of health care for up to 17 million people is immaterial. That's his position on this bill. JD Vance, fighter for the working class.
We're all going to die. Everyone they'll get over it. It's like there's just an incredible dismissiveness towards the suffering of people. And
the quote there is from Joni Ernst, "We're all going to die," when she was given a question in a town hall, "What are you doing about this bill? Because people are going to die as they come off Medicaid." She's like, "We're all going to die anyway." Oh, really? That's your answer? That's your answer? Oh my goodness. And then you've got JD Vance talking about it being the minutiae and being immaterial, that all these people are going to come off their health care. And it's just really insensitive, but that is the lack of care that these politicians have for the working class, certainly.
Like, there is no upside to this bill, but if there were to be one, I would hope it would be that between J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote for this bill, Josh Hawley, who spent months talking about how we're a working class party, we must protect Medicaid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, votes for this bill. This idea that these right-wing populist intellectuals who are pushing the party in this like MAGA direction are all full of shit. Like, we can dispense with that notion forever.
And just in case someone's watching this and you're a Republican or an independent and you think, look at these two whiny Obama libs like complaining about this bill. Let me just read you some quotes from others criticizing this bill. The Building Trades Union called it the biggest job-killing bill in the history of this country. Elon Musk called it utterly insane and destructive. The IBEW union called it a direct attack on working families, shoveling tax breaks to the rich. Senator Tom Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, who ended up voting against the bill, was trying to explain why when he said, "What do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years, 3 years, when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid?" Senator Rand Paul, someone who I don't agree with on politics, but is a very principled person when it comes to deficits and debt, said this bill will grow the deficit. The deficit will grow by $270 billion next year, even if you use like the scoring metrics that are most favorable to proponents of this bill. This thing is a disaster.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. It is just a shocker. And as Elizabeth Warren says, look, here's a proof. Republicans are only looking out for their millionaire and billionaire friends, and they're willing to gamble with your lives to pay them off. So if you don't believe that that's what's going on, if you're someone that's sitting here going, oh, shut up, JP, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not even American. Shut up. You know nothing about politics. You know nothing about economics. And sort of attacks I get on a daily basis from people that just don't like me, giving evidence to the idea that the Republican Party has become some MAGA-infested bunch of crazy people who are not in the least bit interested in responsibly governing. I don't like being told that, but let's look at some receipts then. So the Democrats, when they were trying to amend this bill, were presenting amendments to the bill that were very discreet, so that you could see, so that it would be improved, but also by doing this, if these amendments were rejected, you could see where the rationale lay in the bill and with the Republicans who would vote down these amendments. So it started off with the amendment moving to prevent tax cuts for people making over $10 million. So they're saying, why are we giving tax cuts to people earning over 10 million? Why is this what you want the bill to do? So let's actually take the tax cuts out for people earning over 10 million. And the Republicans voted that down. So they're like, okay, right, let's change it. And Mark Kelly said, oh, okay, well, if you want to protect people from earning over 10 million, you want to allow them to earn some more. Let's talk about 100 million. I mean, surely you don't need tax cuts for people earning over 100 million. So Mark Kelly then moved to prevent more tax cuts for people making over 100 million. That was voted down by Republicans. So then Senator Chris Murphy said, okay, right, that's not high enough for you. If you really want to protect people who are super rich, 10 million is not super rich, 100 million is not super rich. I don't know. Okay, well, let's go 500 million. Moved to prevent more tax cuts for people making over 500 million. That got voted down by Republicans. These are just really explicit amendments. And then Angus King moved to prevent tax cuts for people making over 1 billion. There's only, 33 people in the United States this would affect? Voted down. In other words, the Republicans are voting discreetly and explicitly to support tax cuts for the richest, not taking into account anything else. So let's try and bring down the debt burden of this individual piece of legislation by saying, let's not give tax cuts to this level. No. Okay, this level. Oh, no. This level. Oh, no. This level. Owning over $1 billion. Come on. Billionaires. No. Okay, so you definitely want to protect tax cuts for the very richest in society. It's absolutely shocking. So this got passed because J.D. Vance, the vice president, cast the deciding vote. So in a tiebreaker, if there's a 50-50 vote in the Senate, you've got 100 senators, then the vice president gets to come along and cast a deciding vote. It was 50-50 because 3 Republicans crossed the aisle. You had Rand Paul, who is kind of libertarian, doesn't want the debt, national debt to go up. That's what he was voting on. You had Tom Tillis, who's now said he's going to retire and feels free to vote with his conscience. Said it's a terrible bill. 663,000 people in North Carolina are going to lose their healthcare to some degree. How do I explain this to them? So he voted against it. You had Susan Collins from Maine, concerned about rural hospitals, particularly losing a lot of money, or closing down, actually. And people were thinking Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, because she's often voted against Trump's crazier desires. And some people are saying she actually might even start caucusing with the Democrats or just become independent. But she carved out a deal for herself on Alaska. She basically said, I will vote on this bill, even though I don't like this bill at all. I don't like the bill, but I'll vote on it because you bribed me with some kickbacks for Alaska, or with some exemptions for Alaska. Screw the other 49 states. Alaska's all right, so I'm going to vote for it. And that has caused a lot of people to blame Lisa Murkowski for this getting through. But actually, you need to look at another bunch of people like Josh Hawley, who said it's a terrible bill and then voted yes.
We had an incredibly rushed process with a totally arbitrary deadline in which people were
from the bulwark,
basically adding billions of dollars, taking billions of dollars, crossing out provisions, amending provisions, making changes up into the last moment. And Senate Republican leadership had 4 holdouts: Rand Paul, Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, and Lisa Murkowski. Rand Paul would have moved if they had scrapped the debt ceiling raise in the bill. That was not going to happen because they didn't want to do that, because Trump doesn't want to do that. Tom Tillis had already made his position known, and he's retiring now, so that wasn't going to happen. So it came down to basically, could they get Susan Collins, who hinted she was very much against the bill, or Lisa Murkowski? And through a series of provisions, basically gifts to Alaska, they got her vote. And what's kind of remarkable about this is that Lisa Murkowski managed to score some provisions to shield her own state from the devastating consequences of this bill in order to vote for it. And she acknowledged that those devastating consequences will now be inflicted on 49 other states. Right. And she said, well, I'm going to try to fix this, and hopefully it comes back to the Senate. In reality, and she knew this.
And let's just pause on that part, because it's incredible. It's incredible. She's literally said that, and I'll find this for you, Murkowski tells reporters she wants the House. So, because it's been amended, this bill went through the House, got voted 215 to 214, one vote, got through the House, went to the Senate. The Senate then amended the bill. So it has to go back to the House to be voted on again because it's a slightly different bill. Lisa Murkowski says, I will vote yes, but I want them to vote no so it can come back here so we can change it. Rather than voting no right now. She wants the House to send the big, beautiful bill back to the Senate to continue the work. She voted for it. My hope is that the House is going to look at this and recognise that we're not there yet. We're not there yet, but I vote yes anyway. Absolutely incredible. So anyway, just to finish Sam Stein's piece.
The next step is for the House to just try to pass what the Senate passed, which means it will never come back to the Senate. And so Murkowski took a plunge. Whether she did it because she felt it was honestly coming back or not is up to her to explain. But I think everyone else other than her knew that this is the last time the Senate will likely get its hands on it.
And we'll come to that. This is Lisa Murkowski talking to a reporter here, and it's an incredible interaction here, and it's pretty uncomfortable. Ridiculous rationalizing from Lisa Murkowski. The bill is terrible, but instead of voting no, I cut a deal to hurt Alaska just a little bit less than the rest of the country, says John Lovett. I genuinely want to know how big of a sociopath you need to be to try to exempt only your state from Medicaid cuts while people die everywhere else. Pure evil. So this is her rationale, but listen to the pause. This is so cringe.
Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh my God.
That's what Senator Paul said.
My question was easy. Senator, we've got the...
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska. And I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. I work hard to take care of a state that has more unique situations, more unique people, and it's just different. And so when people suggest that federal dollars go to one of our 50 states in a, quote, bailout, I find that offensive. I advocated for my state's interests. I will continue to do that, and I will make no excuses for doing that. Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that we moved through an artificial deadline, an artificial timeline to produce something to meet a deadline rather than to actually try to produce the best bill for the country. But when I saw the direction that this is going, you can either say, I don't like it, not try to help my state, or you can roll up your sleeves.
So she says, I don't like it. It was an artificial timeline. We are told to ram this through, get it done as quickly as possible rather than create the best thing we can. I know that people are going to be disadvantaged right around the country. I don't like it, but I voted for it because Alaska. Wow. I mean, you could have got Alaska. You could have got all the achievements that you've got already for Alaska by saying no to it and then forcing it to be re-amended so that you get the things you like and Alaska sorted. So her rationale makes no sense whatsoever. Here we have McGovern talking in, is it the House Rules Committee?
And listen to this quote from Senator Murkowski, who just caved and voted for this bill. And you got to love this. She said, quote, my hope is that the House is going to look at this and recognize that we're not there yet, end quote. I mean, my question to her is, if you really believe that, then why the hell did you vote for this bill? It doesn't make any sense. It's a dereliction of your duty as a United States Senator and as a representative for the people in Alaska. I mean, when was the last time this current House of Representatives has fixed or solved anything? I mean, where have you been, Senator Murkowski? This Republican House is dysfunction on steroids. And let me say to my Republican friends, I understand that the Senate just jammed you, but you don't have to be complicit. I get it. I know the Republican leadership and Trump don't want scrutiny. They don't want the American people to understand what's really happening here. This bill is a middle finger to millions of Americans. It isn't just a bad bill. It is the most dangerous piece of legislation in modern history. Dangerous because of the very real damage it will do to real people, sick people, hungry kids, families just scraping by. If this is Republicans' top legislative priority this Congress, it tells us everything about where your values lie.
Yep.
It's not with working families, not with struggling communities, but with mega corporations, billionaires, and Donald Trump. Madam Chair.
Absolutely. And by the way, some interesting videos came out from this committee hearing. If you see just in the middle there, you've got a Republican woman there called Fox. Here on the left, you've got a guy called Neguse. He absolutely takes her to town. It was delightful to see. Anyway, yeah. So the other problem might well be that people don't realize that they are on Medicaid. So when they keep hearing that this is going to take 11 to 17 million people off Medicaid, they're like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter because I'm not on it, so I'm all right, Jack. And it turns out that actually the people that are going to be taken off Medicaid are predominantly Republican as opposed to Democrats. It appears it's happening a lot in the red states where the working class are supportive of the Republicans and they're going to get hammered. But they don't think they're going to get hammered because why? Medicaid is not called Medicaid in most states. So here the problem is that Medicaid mostly isn't called Medicaid, so that the disadvantaged people using it have no clue what the fuss is about. And you can see here a list of what it's called in all of these different states, which is most often not Medicaid. For example, in Arkansas, it's called Denali Care. In Alabama, Alabama Care. Arizona, Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System. In, what else do we have? Nevada is called Nevada Medicaid. So that's one where you might be okay. But then New Jersey, NJ Family Care. What else? Tennessee, TennCare. South Dakota Medicaid. Okay. South Carolina, Healthy Connections. Pennsylvania, Medical Assistance. Oregon Health Plan. Soonacare. So many people won't realize that they're even on Medicare or Medicaid, sorry. And that is potentially a problem. Really important point, says John Cooper. Most Medicaid recipients likely have no idea that they're about to lose their coverage. So they're probably not kicking up the fuss. Now, I'm going to go back to your man here because this is really important.
That you were asking.
Yeah, but that wasn't my question. But you can, if you want to talk about, explain to us. I think people want to know, like, why does someone like Jeff Bezos need a tax cut when all this other stuff is being cut? And I think that's not an outrageous question. It's what's on a lot of people's minds. By the way, not just Democrats, but independents and Republicans. That's why that's what the polling tells us, is that people don't quite get it. But if there's a quick answer as to why Jeff Bezos or people who earn what he earns deserve a tax cut, then I'm happy to yield to you.
So I'll just say the reality is this legislation is specifically focused on delivering more jobs, permanent tax cuts, and bigger paychecks for hardworking Americans. That's why the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and the tax relief for seniors.
And the no tax on tips runs out, whereas the tax cut for the rich is kind of permanent. I mean, it's at least 10 years. It's incredible what this bill is seeking to do. And yet Jeff Bezos has just shut down Venice on a $50 million wedding. He can have a tax cut. Oh, Florence over there on Medicaid, screw you. You're not getting that because you need to pay for his wedding. You see that really rich guy over there doesn't give one shit about you. You need to pay for his wedding. Come on. I don't care that you're not going to get healthcare. Come on, give us your healthcare. Thank you very much. Throw some dollars over there. You all right, Jeff? Sorry, what's that? I didn't even realise. Oh, I've got loads more money in my account. No, I don't care. Whatever. Okay.
Spent $50 million on a wedding, and he's getting a tax cut. But whatever. But
I didn't get invited.
Mr. McGovern, I did find the answer to your question.
That you were asking.
Let's make a joke about that by saying I didn't get invited to his wedding. Yeah, no, answer the question. So then we have Senator Josh Hawley, who I don't like at all, but he is not a fan of the big, beautiful bill. But do you know what? He voted for it.
I walked through him and he said, oh, wow, that's very surprising. He said, I'm surprised that they made all these changes to the degree they did. And I said, I am too. He was real clear to Senate Republicans just 2 weeks ago. Don't touch anything else on Medicaid. Take the House framework, tweak it if you need to, but do not do anything else. And this Senate framework is really, it departs from his framework big time.
So it departs from his framework. He is going to attack Medicaid, but I'll vote for it anyway. What is going on? So this is a loyalty test. It's like guaranteed that most Republicans know it's going to screw their own state over, because it screws every state over. But if they don't vote for it, Big Daddy's going to get nasty with them. Absolutely incredible. And, Josh Hawley, back on May the 12th said, don't cut Medicaid. That's what happens. He votes for it anyway. So the Lincoln Project, full of former Republicans like Rick Wilson say, hey, Josh Hawley, just following up on this, what are your thoughts? So then we got to go to Chip Roy. So Chip Roy is someone in the House of Representatives, a Republican, who is likely to vote against it because he does not like the bill. He doesn't like regulation, and he doesn't like the debt going up.
My colleagues in the Senate failed us. My colleagues in the Senate failed us. They sent us a bill knowingly, using a policy baseline gimmick. They sent it knowingly. And they sent it knowing that it was going to have increased deficits.
To which Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, quick reminder to Republican officials who seem to need a refresher today. If you think the bill is bad, you vote no. If you think it's good, you vote yes. You do not vote for things you deem a failure. Good chat, thank you. She's spot on there. Don't slag off this thing and vote yes, because you just show yourself to be fundamentally in a cult of personality and following your dear leader and not following ideology and conscience. Now, Adam Kinzinger, a former Republican lawmaker.
Okay, so here's a quick idea for those, moderate Republicans in the House that are ultimately going to end up voting for this bill. Since obviously it's like giveaway day, Murkowski got whatever she wanted. Here's an idea for you. They're spending like $150 billion on ICE. How about as part of your vote, you ask for $20 billion for Ukraine, $15 billion for Ukraine, $10 billion. How about you get some Ukraine money in there for your vote? Because it's giveaway day, so withhold your vote until they put in Ukraine money. Or else everything you guys have said about being concerned is meaningless. This is your one chance. Okay, so I
like that from Adam Kinzinger. And you got people like Don Bacon. So Don Bacon is a Republican who's massively in support of Ukraine, clearly doesn't like what Trump's doing with regard to Ukraine. Really, really unhappy with this situation. He's retiring now, it turns out, or he's not running again, just like Tom Tillis in the Senate. Don Bacon, support of Ukraine, has no place in the Republican Party anymore. You can't support Ukraine and ask for the Trump administration to actually do something meaningful for Ukraine and keep your job. So he might as well hold out here and try and get Ukraine something and say, I ain't going to vote for this bill until there's something for Ukraine in it. Bloody brilliant. Now, ICE get $160 billion, as you just heard from Adam Kinzinger. That's more than the entire United States Marine Corps. So ICE, rounding up people without due process, nicking them off the streets, they get $160 billion to continue to do that, which is why I say this is a bill about two things: tax cuts for the rich and giving ICE free reign to do what the hell they like. We're not funding immigration enforcement, we're funding a domestic military to hunt busboys and break up families. That's what Brian Allen says about that. We'll see more on that in a second. Now, it could be interesting going through the House, because you've got people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, actually not a fan. Marjorie Taylor Greene just announced on the Steve Bannon show that Trump's big bullshit bill doesn't have enough votes to the House. In the House. This is far from over. I can't imagine it passing. Johnson does not have the votes, and she called it a shit show. Wow. I wonder if that is going to be the case, because most people are thinking it will get through the House. Now, then you have Elon Musk. So we already know that Donald Trump, the other day, I talked about this, it's taking out electric vehicle mandates. It's going to hammer renewables, which is not good for people who are interested in electric cars, for example. It's going to whack up the debt, and Musk is not going to do well out of this bill. But supposedly he's saying that he hates it, not on account of that he's going to lose mandates and whatnot. It's all about the debt ceiling and the extra debt added to the US deficit. So he's gone to town on slagging off this bill all over the socials. But here we have Trump going to town on Musk, then Musk saying, if this insane spending bill passes, the American Party will be formed the next day. Our country needs an alternative to the Democrat-Republican Uniparty so that people actually have a voice. So he's now saying, I'll start up another political party that challenge the GOP. He also says every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame. And they will lose their primary next year if it's the last thing I do on this earth. That's a really big call. I think it's hyperbolic. I doubt he's going to spank all that money on challenging every single freaking senator and representative in the House, give or take, who voted for this bill. He's going to challenge them, fund primaries against them. But that's what he's saying. This is a war between Trump and Musk now. And then there's this. Wow. So Musk gets it suddenly, finally. Removal of funding for enforcement of federal contempt of court orders is the actual crux of the spending bill. So remember, smuggled into it is that you can't be held in contempt of court. So in other words, it gives the Trump administration permission to do whatever the hell they like, and they can't be found in contempt of court. Musk now recognizes this. He says this is nominally aimed at removal of illegal immigrants, but obviously also enables many other abuses of power by the president. Should this be allowed? He asks in a poll. He understands what is really going on with this bill. Now, remember, Trump had already previously threatened Musk with very serious consequences if he funds Democratic candidates. You've got this weird situation where, I mean, it all looks pretty illegal and corrupt and threatening and dictatorial. That Trump says, hey, you're allowed to fund us for $270 million or whatever it was. But if you even remotely think about funding Democrats, I'm going to kick you out of the country. Wow. Just incredible. Now, remember that during SPAC 1.0, Elon Musk backed down concerning the Epstein files. So remember, before the Iran strikes happened, that big distraction, Elon Musk said, time to drop a really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's a real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. Mark this post for the future. The truth will come out. He then deleted all of those statements and everything he made concerning that after he had to he didn't have to apologize, but it was deemed what he was saying might be too much for his corporate overlords. No, the board of directors for the different entities that he is involved with. You know, there were complaints that getting involved with attacking Trump is not good for business. And actually, Trump, I think, has more clout in terms of his electorate. His supporters will follow him over Musk. There is some overlap, but where there is overlap of those supporter bases, and they've become much more one-to-one since Musk has really, really embraced right-wing populism. But of that overlap, if they are going to separate, Trump will take most of those people with him. And I think that's been borne out by the data. So anyway, Elon Musk backed down and deleted a bunch of stuff. But then he said this yesterday, which kind of takes us back to square one almost. So he said, so tempting to escalate this. So tempting. But I will refrain for now. So this spat between him and Trump, he is tempted to escalate this, and escalation means Epstein files. No doubt in my mind that is what's going on here. That's what's being talked about. So that's one to watch, because I think that's the one thing that Elon Musk has over Trump, that Trump will suffer as a result of. Now, Michael Wolff, the author, has come out previously and said things like, I've seen these pictures. I know that these pictures exist and I can describe them. Wolff told the podcast there are about a dozen of them. The ones I specifically remember is the two of them with topless girls of an uncertain age sitting on Trump's lap, and then Trump standing there with a stain on the front of his pants, and 3 or 4 girls kind of bent over in laughter. They're topless too, pointing at Trump's pants. So he's a biographer. Why Trump fears Musk's Epstein bomb most of all. So it could be those pictures, but he's certainly been on the manifest. He's been on a flight 7 times with Jeffrey Epstein. He is involved. He's in the file somehow. And that could well raise its ugly head again. Right, so then we're going to... So that's the big, beautiful bill. And it really does look like it's an absolutely terrible bill for the US. So that's the US punching itself in the face. And then we're going to look at putting on its jackboots. And we're going to start with concentration camps. So first of all, let's listen to Trump talk about immigrants going to El Salvador, to the gulag there.
Your administration has said that El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the hemisphere. So why haven't you yet canceled temporary protected status for that country? Was it part of the deal?
Well, we'll take a look. We've had a great relationship with El Salvador. They have a fantastic leader. They built a massive prison system. And I don't know exactly why, but it's a hell of a system. And we bring people there, and when they go there, they don't get out. And frankly, when they hear they have to go there, they become very nice people. They become very nice people. It's a tough...
So apparently it works. They become very nice people. I mean, we haven't seen that. It's just an assertion. And none of the people that the Americans have sent have... Well, Garcia's come out, and then they're trying to send him away again. So, they become very nice people is twaddle.
System, but it's a brilliant system, and it's a system done by a very, very good leader. We'll talk about El Salvador.
So, okay, he's a big fan of sending Americans to, or sending immigrants to El Salvador, and then rounding them up and putting them in, as we're going to see, concentration camps in the US. He's also been playing around with the idea of sending American citizens as well, just really bad criminals, offloading those people abroad. They can be someone else's problem, and it's just some kind of incredibly authoritarian approach. Now, we knew that something was going on in Florida. There were non-stop trucks with construction materials going to an immigration detention facility being built now in the Everglades. Whoever doesn't think this will have harmful environmental impact is lying to themselves. So there's that element to it. Huge number of trucks were going in to build this thing. Well, what is it? Well, it turns out that they have built on an abandoned airport, a concentration camp. This is Benny Johnson. Benny Johnson, remember, is the guy who's taken money from Russia to spout Russian propaganda. He got to be one of the influencers going around saying this wonderful concentration camp. I don't think anyone realizes how impressive Alligator Alcatraz, so that's what they're calling it, is. The state of Florida built this 3,000-bed federal prison in 8 days. The director tells me it could have been done in 72 hours were it not for some regulatory holdups. Now all the state needs is DOJ approval to deputize the National Guard as deportation judges, and this will become the most efficient deportation center in American history. American flag fist bump. Okay, let's have a look at the wonderful Alligator Alcatraz. Here we have, freaking understand this. Here we have a MAGA influencer waxing lyrical about how wonderful bunk beds and cages are. Like, is this where we're at? Is this where the United States is at the moment? Just incredible. And then saying, "Oh, it's amazing! We built this federal prison in 8 days." As Ettingermentum says, China built a hospital in 5 days. Just saying. And I don't know. Let's call a spade a spade. German concentration camp in the picture above. Alligator Alcatraz below. I'm not sure there's functionally an awful lot of difference between the two setups there. Let's just hope there won't be, large shower complexes for huge numbers of people. But do you know what? This is a direction of travel that the US is going in, to the point where Trump is taking presses in these detention centers, in these concentration camps, with Ron DeSantis and Kristi Noem, with their caps. Gulf of America. Yeah, let's celebrate renaming stuff to whatever. Anyway.
Right here, to be honest. Hey, Biden wanted me in here, okay? He wanted me. Didn't work out that way, but he wanted me in here, that son of a bitch. What's your expectation?
So just calling the previous president a son of a bitch and lying about saying he wanted me in here. I mean, I'm sure he wanted Trump in prison, but, because he's a criminal. So it's okay to just call the previous president a son of a bitch now. There you go. This is professionalism at its best. So, of course, they're now proudly selling concentration camp merch. So that Benny Johnson, who's taken money off Russia, going around Alligator Alcatraz, waxing lyrical about how wonderful it is, and they've done such a great job building it so quickly, says, hey, guys, I've just been handed official Alligator Alcatraz merch, he says, wearing a cap of Alligator Alcatraz. I repeat, this prison has merch. Things are going insanely well. He's not saying that sarcastically. That's the sort of thing I could say with my tongue firmly in my cheek, saying things are going insanely well. They've got merch for a concentration camp. No, he's serious. He's fine with that. It's going insanely well. And they've got merch. Whoop. Whoop, whoop. Absolutely incredible. And then the White House, the official account of the White House is on it. Elliot Higgins, I interviewed him yesterday. Please go and check that out. There's so much going on in this image that reflects America's descent into an authoritarian cartoon. Alligator Alcatraz, make America safe again. And we have a background to Donald J. Trump of like swampland Everglades with alligators wearing ice caps. Because this prison is, or this detention center is surrounded by alligators and snakes. Literally, like that's why it's called Alligator Alcatraz, because you can't get out easily because it's surrounded by alligators and snakes. So there's no running away from there. And that's cool. So anyway, nothing like doing policy humanely and compassionately. Right, so let's go and have a little look about who will be in these detention centers / concentration camps. Ohio Republicans pass a bill allowing ICE to detain people, to arrest anyone they suspect might be an illegal immigrant without a warrant. So if you talk about due process, out the window. Now Ohio Republicans, well, they've changed due process. They've basically formally taken away due process. I know English people want me to say due process. I admit it's a proper way of saying it, but it seems weird in the context of the US. Anyway, the bill permits ICE to make arrests in public spaces, including courthouses and schools. It also forbids local officials, including judges, from interfering in ICE and other enforcement efforts. This is a racial profiling bill, explained an immigration attorney. You can't tell if someone is undocumented by looking at them. SB 172 passed the Ohio Senate and is now headed to the House for a final vote. Just very, very disturbing. And then you hear stories like this. This is the report that ICE arrested a 6-year-old boy with leukemia and his mother at immigration court. One officer lifted his shirt to show the family his gun, which terrified the child to the point he urinated in his pants. Quote, they were crying in fear. One of the agents at one point lifted up his shirt, which displayed the gun he was carrying. Mukherjee said the 6-year-old boy was terrified to see the gun. He urinated on himself and wet all his clothing. No one offered him a change of clothing for many hours. This is Trump's America. If you're okay with this, don't dare call yourself a Christian, says this person. I would say just don't dare call yourself morally upstanding. And then you can just see ICE do this time and time again. You know, here's someone that has been pulled to the ground by 4 agents. There. Yep. 4 agents with 2 others nearby. So masked men in Border Patrol vests violently detain a Santa Ana father and force him into an unmarked car. All three of his sons serve in the US Marines. I told you about this before. Two are presently serving, one's a veteran. He got forced to the floor and punched in the head as well, I think. One of his sons, 25-year-old Alexandre Barranco, told KTLA that his father was pepper sprayed in addition to repeatedly being punched in the face during his detention. So his kids are serving for the United States of America in the armed forces. All three of them have done so. Two of them still presently. And they get to see on their phones, while they're serving on behalf of the United States, their father being punched in the face by ICE agents wearing balaclavas without identification, detaining their father. So, yeah. Masked agent dislocated his left shoulder, even briefly taking a gun out the holster with the other hand. I love serving my country, quote, just infuriates us that our own country did this to our own people, said the son. Narciso Barranco was landscaping an IHOP, so he's the one that's a veteran, parking lot in Santa Ana, California. Quote, they just started chasing him and he ran because he was scared. He didn't know who was after him, explained his son. I do believe my father was racially profiled. They didn't ask him anything. Just slam, take him down. Then here's another one. ICE slam the California man to the ground, handcuff him despite major bleeding from the head. Agents shatter the car window, drag him, and then kept pushing his head into the concrete. He's bleeding from his head. Look, witness yelled, but they didn't care. Jose Zuniga had been protected by DACA, so until he recently finished school in La Puente, California. His family says he was still complaining about his head hurting when he reached the detention center, pleading to receive proper medical attention. They're quite incredible scenes. And so it goes on. ICE arrest a Pasadena mother without a warrant, so no due process there. Turns out they abducted the wrong person. Only 2 of the 3 agents had a badge. None were in uniform. I didn't know if I was witnessing a hate crime or a kidnapping, said a witness. Video cuts off just as the daughter begs to call the police, and because they might have been law enforcement, I wasn't even sure whether to call the police. Gillian Reed did end up calling 911, reporting what she thought was a possible kidnapping. Rosalina Luna Vargas was eventually taken into custody despite her 2 children's best efforts. After inflicting all of that trauma, ICE later admit they arrested the wrong person by mistake in the first place and told the family they'd just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's what happens when you don't have due process, you don't have warrants, you don't follow the procedures you should be. Here we've got this amazing video. Someone surrounded his vehicle. He had been filming an ICE red, just driving behind the ICE guys, filming what they were doing because it was so egregious. Then they all surround his car, demand that he wind down a window. You know, they've all got police stuff on their vests, or ICE police, all this stuff, but they are not police, right? And then they're demanding he winds down his window, and he's like, no. So look at all these people with police paraphernalia on.
Is there a reason why you're following us?
I'm trying to see where you're going, if you're kidnapping my neighbors.
Go ahead and leave.
Go ahead and leave, huh?
Leave.
Why?
Leave. You're blocking traffic. Leave.
I'm blocking traffic?
Leave. Okay, let's go.
So then, I think...
What?
An actual policeman turns up.
No.
Roll down your window.
Can you call these guys off?
So an actual policeman turns up saying, I'm not ICE. And he talks to him. And, you know, it's all fine and dandy. But, like, the threat of all those people surrounding him. And he's admittedly filming them. But he's filming them because they are committing what most people would see as, I don't know if you can call it a crime, but they're certainly doing things brutally and outside of the due process. Rachel Bidikofer here, the election whisperer, says Trump deported a very popular ice cream guy and left his cart, his business, just sitting there. And we've heard this a bunch of times. Vehicles just left there. People who have been landscaping and all their equipment and stuff, then all of them whisked off. And what happens to the businesses? What happens to the vehicles? So this guy's ice cream cart was just left there. Media needs to start asking questions about what's happening to deported people's homes, their cars, and their businesses. Is Trump confiscating it like the Nazis did to the Jews? So it's really like don't just dismiss this as like, oh God, of course it's not Nazi Germany 1930s. Like, because this is how it started. The Nazis seized the best shit, mansions, cars, arts, jewels, but for the surveillance state, they needed citizens to denounce Jews, people hiding Jews, parents that insult the party. Anyone who got admitted, they were losing the war. They paid them off with seized loot. But it'd be interesting, we've already seen people have been threatened with legal ramifications if they kind of are filming, if they're supporting, if they're interfering with these arrests. People who have been, even we had the comptroller from I forget which district who was shackled for accompanying people to the immigration courts to make sure that they weren't hoisted, just stolen off the premises by ICE. And if you support these guys, or if you want to make a stance and call for due process, then you end up getting done too, which, does look a little bit like 1930s Germany. And then, because it's not dodgy enough, ICE have been spotted. This is a video coming from Bell Gardens, pulling into a parking lot and then changing their registrations, their car registration. So ICE in Bell Gardens on the 21st of June, changing their car plates. So taking the plates off that they have and changing them to other plates. Because they are, well, I'm not even sure that's legal. That can't be legal. That can't be legal. What is going on here? It's absolutely staggering. So, punching yourself in the face with legislation and then putting on your jackboots. Gavin Newsom then says, this has changed actually. I think some of them gone back to like firefighting and things. But your daily reminder that Trump still has 4,946 troops sitting around LA doing nothing. So what happened is Trump, very famously called in the troops to help ICE, and then the troops were just completely unnecessary. They weren't needed because ICE didn't need them. They never did need them. This was a big bit of PR. This was performative. That cost all the money of bringing these troops in, 5,000 odd troops, into California where they were twiddling their thumbs. All of that extra cost. Meanwhile, he has weakened our border safety operations, slashing the National Guard's fentanyl and drug interdiction force by 32%. So taking these people from doing the stuff that they otherwise are moaning about that needs to be done, like fentanyl and drug interdiction, taking them from there, putting them on the streets of California as a show of force to really be a bit of a PR stunt for the media. He's actively endangering our communities by keeping these troops in LA, says Gavin Newsom. Just incredible. Right, then we're going to go to just the rank corruption that is taking place. I'll probably leave that for a second video. I'll split this into two parts. This will be a two-parter because what I want to show you is the legislation, like all about doing a good one for the richest in society. Quid pro quo, that kind of corruption. You pay us money, we'll do legislation that supports your domain, your fossil fuel industry, or if you're just super rich, you can pay us through, Jeff Bezos, through Melania Trump, 40 million, there you go, and $1 million for the inauguration, thank you very much. You tech people can pay us all this money. Will then demand that a digital sales tax is taken off the table in the discussions with EU and the discussions with Canada. You line our pockets, we'll line your pockets. There's all that kind of corruption going on. And then you've got just outright corruption of Trump grifting, meme coins, cryptocurrency stuff. You've got trying to sell all of his stuff, all that grift that's taking place, so on and so forth. So you've got this corruption that is taking place alongside this legislation and alongside this authoritarian crackdown on migrants that will also have a deleterious effect on the economy by by affecting inflation. You join all these dots, and the United States, there are red flags flying all over the shop. There are 5-alarm bells going off 24/7. We're in a really dangerous place. The United States is in a dangerous place. And if they export that to countries like the UK, which is looking like it's happening, we've got Reform spouting all that same crap over here, doing Doge in their different councils that they're running now. And people appear not to be as concerned as they should be, because Nigel Farage, he's all, they're all the same. Politicians, I just want, get rid of the immigrants. That's cool. As long as immigrants are taken care of, then you can do whatever else. You can burn the whole house down, don't care. And that's what's happening. So these populists are getting in, turning places into authoritarian hellholes. But it's all right because, they're getting rid of some of the illegal immigrants. So that's fine. And that's essentially what appears to be the order of the day in the United States. But I think you can safely say that that's going to be a problem that has and will continue to sweep across Europe. Deeply, deeply concerning. Anyway, part 2 to come later.